Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Muratov, Herr Kaiser, President of the Committee of the Charlemagne Medal, the representatives of the Center of Journalism, and the other participants, a very warm welcome here in this beautiful room, the room of democracy. That's very important to start with. I would, of course, like to begin by congratulating Mr. Muratov on the award of the Charlemagne Medal to the Novaya Gazeta newspaper yesterday. The merits of your fellow editors and yourself were fully explained yesterday during the presentation in Aachen. Your newspaper occupies an independent position in Russia, where you advocate freedom to express an opinion. And your support for press freedom has placed you in a difficult position in the Russia of today. Freedom of the press cannot be taken for granted in your country, or any country. More to the point, you and your colleagues are harassed and threatened, even to the extent that several of them met their death in suspicious and unexplained circumstances. How confident and certain of your convictions must you be to withstand the might of the state and still produce a quality newspaper? And it takes a lot of courage to do so. We're very impressed on that point. The city of Maastricht believes that Novaya Gazeta is a very worthy winner. I sincerely hope that the prestige of the prize and our solidarity are extra incentives for you to continue along your chosen path and to express your independent opinion. Because, ladies and gentlemen, even though press freedom is almost self-evident in the Western world, you don't have to go far to discover that is not always the case. You can examine the topic from a national point of view. If one country has comments about restrictions or violations of freedom of expression and press freedom in another country, the response is usually, other countries shouldn't meddle in our affairs, put your own house in order, etc. I do not agree with that response. But the fact is that when one country criticizes another, the comments tend to convey accusations and prejudices and ulterior motives of a political nature. It is therefore more important, when considering this matter, to emphasize the position of the citizen. Citizens require freedom of expression at every level of political decision-making. The municipality, the province, the national government, Europe, and increasingly even the world. Press freedom and freedom of expression are vital conditions for arriving at political decisions of our citizens. Citizens require freedom and a vital public opinion process in order to participate in that political process. So, where press freedom is being called into question, or when it is not functioning as it should, all world citizens have an interest in criticizing. They even have a duty to do so. However, press freedom by itself is insufficient. The recent discussions about the European Union has taught us that public opinion is fueled from the position of national interests. There is no serious public sphere, public space, no public opinion process at European level. It is almost as if the political debate should focus on national interest, while the thing that counts is the direction of Europe as a whole. Obtaining a public opinion at European level places heavy demands on citizens and journalists. It not only requires criticism where press freedom is under threat, it also means that citizens must be addressed not only as national citizens, but also as citizens of Europe, as citizens even of the world. And when it comes to a city like Maastricht, it goes without saying that the same conclusions apply. After all, if we in Maastricht want to be an international European knowledge and culture center, characterized by icons such as the Maastricht Treaty in 1992, the introduction of the euro in 2002, and the candidacy for European Capital of Culture in 2018, a cultural capital that we are organizing jointly and equally with Aachen, Liège, Hasselt, Heerlen, Sittard-Geleen, Genk, Sint-Truiden, the provinces and the regions, and the German-speaking community in Belgium, in other words, the complete Maas-Rhine Euregion, we face the same challenge of culturally uniting this region to create unity in diversity. That means that we will have to state and acknowledge our differences in all openness, in transparency, with respect and in a democratic manner, and develop forms of collaboration that transcend national borders as an example of a new Europe, a Europe of the citizens. The challenge in face of populism is to facilitate the joint political will of our citizens by creating a common public process, a cross-border public opinion that is based not only on the limitation of national interests. Our candidacy assumes that the future of our Euregio will benefit to a large extent from international cooperation, such as collaboration between knowledge institutions, for instance. Such cooperation is not yet self-evident, also for our citizens, who are used to judging matters from a national perspective. In order to convince citizens that the chosen direction of the candidacy is logical, they will have to be able to envisage the opportunities and prospects at supra-regional and supranational level. This will present an enormous challenge to the various media in the three Euregional countries to express opinions that transcend those national boundaries. As you will have concluded, ladies and gentlemen, our candidacy and the discussions you will shortly be holding have clear interfaces as regards to the position of the press. It goes without saying that the example of Novaya Gazeta is a clear and strong case, particularly when you realize that the editors involved run personal risks. From our point of view, this may seem a very extreme example. The media in our region must also be sure of its position. Not at the same level as Novaya Gazeta perhaps, but it too must decide whether it goes along with popular opinion, with an exclusive focus on national interest, or whether it is prepared to transcend borders and redirect its opinions to European and international level. This will strengthen the position of the press and the position of our citizens. Democracy and civil rights is what is needed from Moscow to Maastricht. When we do not succeed in showing that we have a successful democracy, and we are not at this very moment, we not only harm our own vital values, the European model, but we do not help either Novaya Gazeta and other democratic forces in other countries. So, Europeans, let's unite on the democratic model for Europe. The battle is not over yet, and perhaps it will be a lifelong task for every citizen. Thank you for your example, And as a token of our appreciation, I will give you the only book about Maastricht which is written in Russian. Thank you for your example.
My name is Wilfried Rutten. I'm the director of the European Journalism Center here in Maastricht. We've been working in this city now for 20 years. We have a celebration coming up in 4 weeks' time commemorating the 20 years of being here, and we very much appreciate the occasion of being able to host your speech today and also being able to cooperate with the Charlemagne organization on this. I'll be rather brief. I'm a journalist myself, so I think what we most admire in you and in your organization is the courage you have. It is quite amazing to see you standing up against the powers that be and not flinching, and even if staff on your newspaper gets killed, you still continue with this. And I think we in the West are quite pampered and are worried about our own little problems in journalism, which we do have, but compared to the struggles or the obstacles you're facing, I think everybody here should be much more modest on what their own problems are and what we think is important here. Holding power to account is one of the most important aspects of journalism anywhere in the world, I think. And I think you do this to a remarkable degree. And I think whenever you get into heavy waters or worried about how the outcome will be, rest assured that everybody is watching and everybody will be extending their solidarity to you, so you can continue the work. Maybe one more remark about the press freedom. Of course, in the more eastern countries, there's a lot of very basic threats to the press freedom. By government interference, by police interference, by state security interference, things like this. In the West, we are more liberal there, and we feel we're not being watched so much. But on the other hand, we have another problem in the West, because here we see the journalism business model is failing substantially. So a lot of colleagues are out of work, a lot of colleagues are not making enough money, a lot of colleagues are struggling to survive. On one hand. On the other hand, we see journalism schools are still crowded. It's not that the profession has come out of fashion, but it is rather the opposite. It seems like the more complicated the situation gets, the more young people want to become journalists. So I think that this is a very optimistic, on one hand, a very optimistic situation. On the other hand, we need to find new models of sustainability. We need to find new models of making business, of making journalism survive. And the present model based on advertising might be failing us, and I think there's a lot of discussions in the journalism community at large on how we can find new models to make our profession more sustainable and more worthwhile, also to attract people, so we can, with a good conscience, say to young journalists, yes, do come and join the profession, do become a journalist, this is worthwhile, this is, you will be able to make a difference. This is, I think, the challenge we are at the moment now. And whenever we look at Russia or other countries with less democratic structures, I think we should learn a lesson from that we don't give up, that we keep on doing what we do, and that we just become, if you want, a group of journalists worldwide. I was joking with my colleagues, journalists are the same everywhere in the world. You see them by the way they walk, you see them by the way they dress. I can tell them from behind if they're journalists or not. So there is this communal feeling of journalists worldwide, and I think we can be very proud that we are part of the organization of journalism where you are one of the really leading examples, and that's all I want to say. Thank you very much.
Я во вчерашнем выступлении постарался сказать все, что хотел. И, честно говоря, наверное, сегодня ничем удивить уже не сумею.
You know, during my yesterday's speech, I have said everything that I wish to say. And to be honest, I think that today I cannot surprise you with anything anymore.
Несколько слов про газету я расскажу. Нам в следующем году исполняется 20 лет. В газете работают самые звездные журналисты России и самые молодые студенты. У нас приблизительно 120-130 человек. Все отлично уживаются друг с другом.
But however, I would like to say a few words about our newspaper. So Novaya Gazeta will celebrate its 20th anniversary next year. And I should say that among people who work for us, there's our star journalists, the best journalist of Russia, and the youngest journalist of Russia. At this moment, we have about 120, 130 journalists working for us, and all of them have really perfect relationships with each other.
Организовывая новую газету, мы ушли из очень успешных государственных СМИ. Мы все были людьми благополучными, работающими в газетах с тиражами по 20-25 миллионов экземпляров, и вот мы решили с нуля сделать новую газету. Любопытный факт в том, что первые компьютеры, у нас не было ни копейки денег, первые компьютеры были куплены нами с Нобелевской премией, полученной Михаилом Горбачевым. Первые 20 персональных компьютеров. Сейчас Горбачев остается у нас в редакции акционером, ему принадлежит 10% газеты.
At the beginning of our newspaper, when we founded it, the people, the founders, they used to work, at that time, they used to work for very successful Russian media, state-driven Russian media, very known newspapers. 20 or 25 million of copies were sold every day of these newspapers, and still they have decided to leave those media behind and to establish a new Gazeta, Novaya Gazeta. And it's quite remarkable that we even didn't have funds to buy our first computer. And the first 20 computers were bought from some part of the Nobel Prize received by Mikhail Gorbachev. And Mikhail Gorbachev is at present still a shareholder of our newspaper, and he holds 10% of our shares.
Газета с самого начала начала специализироваться на журналистских расследованиях. Это очень серьезная технология, это рискованная и опасная работа, но два основных жанра в новой газете, из-за чего ее любят и читают люди в России. Это расследование и специальный репортаж. Самым первым расследованием было, не удивляйтесь, не смейтесь, это правда, мы сумели купить в 1993 году и в 1994 году в России все до единого компоненты атомной бомбы.
Right from the beginning of our newspaper, our main focus has been investigative journalism. So we can say that we have two main areas of work. This is investigations, which is a very risky business, and special reports. Our first investigation, and you should not laugh at me, and you should really believe that it is true, was investigation dedicated to the nuclear bomb. At that time, in '93, our journalists managed to buy in Russia all the required components to create a nuclear bomb.
Когда мы предъявили все это власти, все элементы атомной бомбы, купленные нами на черном рынке торговцев оружием, я этим тоже занимался, то был резко усилен контроль над российским атомным оружием. Поэтому благодаря новой газете мы здесь и сидим.
And when we presented to the Russian states with our findings, we showed all the components that we could buy at the black market with the arms trafficking organization, and I was personally involved into that. Then the state decided to really suddenly increase the level of control of nuclear armaments of Russia. So it's just because of Novaya Gazeta, all of us, ladies and gentlemen, are now present here.
Я совсем коротко расскажу, я должен всегда об этом говорю, потому что мы все всегда об этом помним. У нас есть большой круглый зал, в котором собирается редакционная коллегия, ну чуть поменьше, чем этот, но большой круглый зал. И в нем висят портреты наших друзей. тех, кто погиб при исполнении служебных обязанностей. В 2000 году был убит за свои журналистские расследования Игорь Домников, абсолютно гениальный журналист, просто гениальный парень. Его убийца найдены, это бригада киллеров, они сейчас получили пожизненное заключение. А заказчик пока нет.
And I would like to say some words on some, to dedicate them to some other people. And in each speech that I give, I mention those people. You know, in our newspaper, we have a similar room. It's, of course, it's not so big as this one, but it is a round room, and we have portraits of our friends hanging there on the walls. And those are portraits of people who are not there anymore. Those are journalists of Novaya Gazeta who were slain, who were killed while being on duty. In 2000, the journalist Igor Domnikov was killed. Mr. Domnikov, Igor, was a genius, just really a genius journalist, and now he's not with us. And the group of the killers of Igor was found. All of them now have been sentenced for life. However, the master brain, the client of this killing order, has not been found yet.
Редакция принимала участие в этом расследовании, и во многом благодаря ее усилиям убийцы оказались за решеткой.
And our journalists of Novaya Gazeta participated in the investigations, and because of their efforts, killers have been found and now are in prison.
В 2003 году погиб мой лучший друг, член парламента, председатель комитета по борьбе с коррупцией российского парламента, один из самых знаменитых журналистов страны. Им зачитывались 2 поколения людей, Юрий Щекочихин.
And in 2003, another person was killed, my best friend, member of the parliament, the chairman of the anti-corruption committee of the Russian state, and just a person who is very well known in Russia. 2 generations of people were reading his work, and this person is Yuri Щекочихин.
Он был моим заместителем и ближайшим другом. Погиб он за несколько дней. Ему было каким-то образом введено отравляющее вещество, видимо, с кофе. И за несколько дней из цветущего 47-летнего человека он превратился в 100-летнего старика, на котором не осталось кожи.
And Igor Щекочихин,
Yuri
Щекочихин had been dying for a few days because they somehow managed to inject a poison into his body. Probably he was poisoned by drinking coffee. And then you saw that just in a couple of days, this useful, very nice, very friendly person of 47 years old became a 100-year-old person, and his skin just peeled off.
Убийцы не найдены. Дело ведется до сих пор. Возобновилось оно благодаря вмешательству президента Медведева, предыдущего президента России, и Газете. Так что мы будем продолжать искать.
The murders of Yuri Щекочихин have not been found yet, and the investigation is still ongoing. It was closed, and now it has been the case has been reopened due to the involvement of Mr. Dmitry Medvedev, former president.
И, конечно, я вспомню сегодня Аню Политковскую. В начале октября 2006 года, 6 октября в 16 часов 02 минуты, она была расстреляна 4 пулями в подъезде своего дома. Мы сделали Ане памятник. Это такой лист бумаги, заправленный в землю, как в принтер. И в этом белом листе бумаги, сделанном из бетона, просто 4 пулевых отверстия.
And of course, I need to mention Anna Politkovskaya, who was killed on the 6th of October 2006, 16 hours, 2 minutes, in the afternoon. She was killed by being shot down with 4 bullets. And we have made a statue for her, a memorial. And the statue looks like this. There is a sheet of white paper which is put into the ground, and this white page has 4 holes, 4 bullet holes in it.
Скоро будет процесс над убийцами Анны Политковской. Редакция вложила в это гигантский труд. В том числе мы находили свидетелей, которых не нашло следствие, и охраняли этих свидетелей. Но заказчик преступления до сих пор не найден. А убийца нам уже известен. Причем, что интересно, кто-то этому убийце дал новый загранпаспорт после того, как он уже числился в розыске Интерпола. И он на какое-то время покидал территорию России. Кто у нас выдает загранпаспорта людям, которые находятся в розыске? Большая загадка.
So, very soon a process, a criminal court proceeding will take place dedicated to the murder of Anna Politkovskaya. And due to the efforts of our journalists, the killers of Anna have been found. We have done much more what the state, what the police could do. We have found the witnesses that they could not find. We defended those witnesses. We even found the killer, and but still the master brain is still free, and we have not found him. And what is interesting with the killer is that he was actually getting the new international passport allowing him to travel outside of Russia after the criminal investigation had started. So who in our country who can issue a new passport allowing you to leave the country when the criminal investigation is ongoing? This is quite a remarkable question.
Несмотря на те трагедии, которые случились с нашими сотрудниками, это очень веселая, молодая, азартная редакция. Говорят, что у нас еще и самые длинноногие девушки в Москве работают.
But despite all the tragedies that our team has gone through, it's still a very useful, very frivolous, I would say, slightly naughty team. And they even say that the ladies with the longest legs in Russia work in our journalist team.
Кругосветные путешествия, прыжки с парашютом, расследования, эксперименты, которые люди ставят на себе, меняя профессию. Это такой метод познания жизни вот этих молодых, очень талантливых людей. В среднем к нам приходит из разных университетов страны 60 стажеров стажироваться и практиковаться на работе в год. То есть мы постоянно живем среди огромного количества молодых людей, которые мечтали бы работать в газете. Я им говорю, не надо, идите, займитесь торговлей. Утром прихожу, сидят.
So there's people who travel all over the world. They jump with parachutes. They do investigations. They really experiment with life. They change profession just to see how it will go. Those are really young, very talented people who work with us. And every year, about 60 students of different universities of Russia come to us for internship. So every day you can imagine us being surrounded by all those young people, and they just dream to start working for us. And every day I say to them, no, you shouldn't do that. Go and do some commercial business. But the next morning I come to the office and they're still there.
Я понимаю, там есть большой стимул. Ни одно слово, написанное этими людьми, во-первых, у нас отсутствует цензура. Я, как редактор, стараюсь газету читать после того, как она вышла. А во-вторых, они чувствуют, как их любят люди.
And I do understand what is driving those people. Because actually, in our organization, we do not have the concept of censorship. Being an editor-in-chief, I try to read the newspaper after it has been issued. So all their words are just passed to the public. And secondly, of course, they feel a great affection and love of people for them.
Они любят эту аудиторию, аудитория любит наших журналистов. Кто нас читает? То, что называется креативный класс. Учителя, врачи, молодые инженеры, программисты, актеры, поэты, писатели, музыканты. Все, на мой взгляд, замечательные мозги, российские замечательные мозги. Вот они наши читатели. Я глубоко уверен, что наша аудитория умнее нас, включая, естественно, главного редактора.
So, and of course, our journalists love their readers, our readers love our journalists. And who are those readers? Our readers are the so-called creative class. So it is teachers, doctors, young engineers, IT people, actors, musicians, artists. And I should say those are the best brains of Russia. And I'm confident that the intellectual potential of our group of our readers is much bigger than ours. They are much smarter than our journalists, including their editor-in-chief.
Аудитория каждого печатного номера газеты сейчас приблизительно 1 200 000 человек. Это тот, кто читает каждый номер газеты. И аудитория веб-редакции приблизительно 8-9 миллионов просмотров в месяц.
So we have about 1.2 million people who read our newspaper every day, and we have about 8 or 9 million visits to our web service per month.
Заканчиваю, мне осталось 3 минуты. Конечно, в том, что нас любят и читают, огромная заслуга, величайшая заслуга правящей российской партии и лично Владимира Владимировича Путина. Сейчас я поясню.
I see that I need to conclude my speech. I have only 3 minutes left, but I would like to say that, of course, the fact that we are being read so much, that people really love us and they keep reading us, this is thanks to their powers in B, to their political party which is ruling Russia, and to Vladimir Putin. Why? I will explain now.
Лучший друг Путина собрал воедино почти все ведущие СМИ страны. Его лучший друг — сосед по даче, господин Шамалов. Господи, не надо фамилию. Ковальчук, конечно, господин Ковальчук.
So the best friend of Mr. Putin, Mr. Yuri Kovalchuk, has gathered together all the media in Russia.
Ему принадлежит Первый канал телевидения, Третий канал телевидения, Четвертый канал телевидения, Пятый канал телевидения, все желтые газеты страны, и ведущие газеты страны «Известия», и еще и все радио, и все медиа-активы «Газпрома».
So this person, he owns the TV channel number 1, number 3, number 4, number 5, all the yellow press of the country, the newspaper Izvestia, all the radio channels, and the Gazprom media. He owns Gazprom media.
Вообще, большинство газет и средств массовой информации в России учреждены действующей властью, местной властью, региональной властью и федеральной властью. Почти 90% газет страны являются государственными газетами. Представьте себе асфальт до горизонта. Вот все заасфальтировано. А тут мы цветем.
So you can imagine that actually the majority of all the media in Russia have been established by the state. So it's either by local state authority or regional or national. And then you have like 90% of the media which is in hands of the state. So you can just see the road, this square which is covered with asphalt, and there is this small green oasis, and this is Novaya Gazeta.
Мы говорим привет, пойдемте к нам.
And we say, hey, people, welcome, visit our house.
Еще, конечно, людей привлекает то, что эта газета эффективная. когда мы ведем свое расследование, мы требуем возбуждения уголовных дел, судебных процессов, ответов чиновников по существу всех поставленных вопросов. И если чиновник нам не отвечает, то мы на него подаем в суд за то, что он нам не ответил. У нас занимается этим специальная юридическая служба. Поэтому по каждому нашему выступлению чиновникам приходится давать нам ответ. Это наше ноу-хау.
But besides that, we have another very important aspect of our work, which is very attractive for our readers, and this is our efficacy. So we don't do things just like that. If we do an investigation, then later, based on the result of this investigation, we demand that the state starts the court case. So if we do some other investigation and we need an answer from some state civil servants, we will require that answer, and we will not be just there sleeping, waiting. If they don't give us their answer, we sue them, we go to the court with that. And so we have a special legal service which is concerned with that. And so this efficacy, this is our know-how, which is very attractive for our readers.
И последние две коротких вещи. Мы вместе с нашими читателями очень много помогаем детям больным лейкозом. В год с помощью благотворительности аудитории «Новой газеты» вылечивается несколько десятков человек. Мы этим очень гордимся. И второе. Мой друг однажды сказал очень умную вещь. В России, да и не только в России, и в других странах, очень многое можно сделать, если не спрашивать на это разрешение. Вот чего и вам желаю.
And I just would like to say two short other things. And this is, in our Novaya Gazeta, we also help sick children. Children sick with leukosis, and due to our effort, we managed to make 10 children healthier. 10 children recover every year due to our efforts. This is first one. The second one, as my friend, a very good friend says, in Russia, you can really achieve a lot. You just shouldn't ask for permission. And this is what I want you to remember based on the conclusion of my speech.
Спасибо.
Thank you. Эрик, я думаю, сейчас наш модератор скажет.
Yes, thank you very much for this overview and interesting insights. And this is supposed to be a debate, so you are more than welcome to contribute and to ask questions. Please just give me a sign that you would like to speak. Perhaps to start, obviously the Medaille Charlemagne is in order to appreciate the work you and your newspaper have been doing and are doing on a continuing basis. On the other hand, a thing that would interest me is how does an award like this affect your work in Russia and your practical experience? I mean, it is not the first award you have received, but I think over the last few years there were several ones. Do they help in any way your position in the Russian media and your position towards the Russian government and powers that be?
Это огромный моральный стимул. Каждый, кто входит в нашу редакцию, видит выдающиеся награды. Одной из первых там будет уже завтра медаль Карла Великого. И люди понимают, что их слышат, что о них позаботятся, что они могут рассчитывать на общественное мнение не только у себя в стране, но и в Европе. Это, безусловно, очень важно. Но вчера в присутствии господина заместителя мэра, в вашем присутствии Михаила, я уже сказал о том, что в большей степени меня беспокоит Беспокоите вы, как отнесется компания «Газпром» к тому, что вы нам вручили эту награду? И не будет ли у вас холодной зимы?
Well, I just should say that it is, of course, a huge moral drive for all journalists working at Novaya Gazeta. Every time when they enter the editor room and they see another award arriving, they do understand that there are people around the world who think of them, who support them, who have heard about their work, who have read their work, not only in Russia, but also in Europe. And yesterday, when I was present at the dinner with the gentleman present here, and to the, I asked, I told to the foundation of Medal Charlemagne that now I'm not so much concerned about myself, I'm concerned about you. What do you think Gazprom will think about you giving us this award? Aren't you afraid to have a very cold winter?
You have described how many of the journalists that are working for you have been killed in their duties, actually. And I think many others have been injured and have been beaten up over the years. How do you provide the most secure possible work environment for your journalists? I mean, you described that one of your strengths certainly is that your investigative reporters can find out more than the police and the judicial system can do. But are there also practical recommendations you give to your journalists? And are there perhaps lessons to be learned from your work for other countries, for example, in the Western Balkans or in Central Asia, for journalists how to go about their work in a more secure fashion?
К сожалению, мы не специальная служба, и у нас нет подразделений силовой защиты для сотрудников. Я действительно вынужден последние несколько лет ограничивать командировки наших сотрудников на Северный Кавказ, что приводит к моим конфликтам с этими сотрудниками, ограничивать некоторые темы. Другим способом я, к сожалению, предотвратить угрозы пока не могу. А из мелких вещей, да, у нас люди, которые работают по особым темам, они застрахованы, у них есть средства индивидуальной защиты, о них заботятся редакторы отделов, но, к сожалению, ничего большего я сделать не могу. Хотя вот Германия нам несколько лет назад сильно помогла. Одного из наших сотрудников мы отправили сюда, он находится под программой защиты свидетелей. На вторую часть вопроса я отвечу позднее.
First, I will give the answer to your first to the first part of your question. So, unfortunately, we are not special forces, and we do not have marine services defending our journalists. However, what I can do, I do, and sometimes it means that I limit trips of my journalists to the Northern Caucasus, or I limit some topics. I do not allow them to work on a certain topic, even if it leads to a conflict with this journalist. And unfortunately, at the moment, this is the only big thing that I really can do. And talking about some small aspects, of course, all our journalists involved into investigations, they are insured, they have individual protection means, and their editors take care of them. However, I would like also to mention one example of Germany, which really helped us a lot a couple of years ago. Our journalist is still there. Now, at the moment, they welcomed him within the framework of a witness protection program.
Теперь вторая часть вопроса, самая интересная. Современное расследование – это высокотехнологичный процесс, который связан с аналитикой, с кибернетикой, с новыми компьютерными технологиями.
And now the second part of the question, which is even more interesting, because I would say that the modern process of journalism investigation, it is a very highly technological process involving analysis, cybernetics, and new computer technologies.
Мы научились, как орнитологи следят за птицей, следить за передвижением денег чиновников, как европейских, так и российских.
So just like ornithologists following the movement of the birds, we have learned how to follow the movement of money of Russian civil servants, there's money moving away from Russia.
Мы были инициаторами создания международной организации журналистов-расследователей, и у нас теперь есть множество баз данных. Когда вы посмотрите, как работает наш отдел расследований, это огромные листы бумаги, на которых стрелками указаны люди, связанные друг с другом, их фирмы, компании, аффилированные структуры. А в компьютерах одна база данных накладывается на другую базу данных, на третью базу данных, выясняются пересечения этих людей, возникает некоторая картина мира.
So we were initiating the establishment of the International Association of Investigative Journalism, and that meant that we could join various databases. And now it would be for you very interesting to see the rooms where our investigative journalists work, because there you will have a huge sheet of paper, and with different arrows, different names, there's written, we investigate different connections between people, between firms, associated organizations, personalities, all the other data. And then we just join those databases and we see how they overlap. When they overlap, it gives us additional information.
Когда мы готовы предъявить обвинение в коррупции, то дальше вмешиваются в дело высокие стандарты журналистики. Тому человеку, которого мы обвиняем в коррупции, мы отправляем запрос с перечислением тех фактов, которые нам стали известны, и даем ему от недели до 2 недель на ответ. Он имеет право на ответ до публикации газеты.
And when we, for example, investigate corruption, before we accuse someone of corruption, we really follow the very high standards of journalism work. So we send a letter to the person concerned and we list all the facts that we have found, and we give this person the opportunity to reply on it. We give about 1 week or 2 weeks before we publish anything in our newspaper.
Вот эти недели или 2 недели, когда обвиняемому становится известно, в чем его обвиняют, они самые опасные. Оказывается серьезное давление на редакцию, и, естественно, это время опасно для сотрудника, который готовил этот материал.
And this period of 1 or 2 weeks, when the accused person gets to know what we know, that period is the most dangerous period in our work, because then we feel the pressure on the newspaper is increasing, and we know that it is a very dangerous situation for the journalist involved.
И второе наше достоинство, которое я считаю одним из основных достоинств газеты, мы никогда ни по каким решениям, ни под каким предлогом не открываем имена своих информаторов. Есть решение суда рассказать, откуда у нас информация, нет решения суда, мы все равно никогда, ни разу за всю историю газеты, мы ни разу не выдали ни одного человека, не открыли его имя. И люди нам верят. Поэтому с очень многими вещами, вот на днях будет напечатан материал еще никто не знает, о генеральном прокуроре России, о его недвижимости, которую он не указал в декларации. Только благодаря доверию к нам мог прийти тот источник информации, который поделился этими данными.
And another huge advantage of our newspaper is that starting from the very beginning of our newspaper until now, there has been no a single occasion when we disclosed the names of our informants. Even if there was a court decision ordering us to do that, we have never done that. And that means that people really trust us and they come to us with their information. And very soon, at the moment, no one knows about that, but within a couple of weeks, we will publish some information on the General Prosecutor of Russia about his real estate, which he has not declared. And this person who has given us this valuable information came to us because they know that we never disclose our informants.
For an observer from the outside of Russia, it is sometimes hard to get their head around the situation of, well, various levels of threat for security or levels of people trying to repress information to be published. Could you elaborate a bit more on the role of the state or people close to the state and government institutions on the one hand, and people trying to repress information in the private sector, for instance? Because you described earlier in your speech also that you managed to have lawsuits against the murderers of your reporters, and also lawsuits following up on investigative reports you have published. So it seems that there is a certain level of dependability of the judicial system, but on the other hand, it seems to be worthy of opposition as well.
Характер давления на редакцию изменился по сравнению с 90-ми годами. Тогда, в первую очередь, были силовые методы. Пытались запугать, бандиты, нанятые. Теперь эпоха открытого бандитизма в России, безусловно, прошла. Теперь предотвратить, в первую очередь, пытаются двумя способами. Взятка и суд. Последний раз за материал о одной из крупнейших российских компаний, не буду называть, автору материала предлагали, чтобы он его просто не напечатал, 250 тысяч евро. Просто за то, чтобы этот материал не появился в газете. Он вышел на следующий день. Второй, вот коммерческий подкуп, попытка коммерческого подкупа, так называемый блок, ну то есть купить молчание. Это один из самых распространенных таких способов. Вполне вероятно, мне известно не о всех случаях. Я не исключаю это. А второе это... давайте сначала это.
So, there are different types of pressure that we are facing when we are preparing our information and our materials. So, of course, in the 90s, there was force used. So people would hire criminals to put pressure on us. However, this period is over, and these force methods are not being used anymore. Now we have two types of pressure. It's either bribing or court. So the first, about bribing, I can give some example. We were going to publish some materials on one of the largest companies in Russia. I will not say the name of this company, but the journalist who was preparing the materials, he was offered 250,000 euro just not to put it into press. And the next day, this material was published in our newspaper. And so this is kind of the commercial bribing. People, the block, they try to buy the silence, and probably I don't know all the occasions when it happens.
И второй способ – это суд. К сожалению, судебная реформа в России буксует, и независимых судов, которые зависят только от закона, к сожалению, и таких судей очень-очень мало. Поэтому политически мотивированные суды могут разорить любое средство массовой информации огромными несоизмерными исками. Ну, несколько исков к нам было по $1 миллиону и по $500 000. Мы выиграли отсюда.
And the second pressure middle is a court proceeding. So unfortunately, the legal reform in Russia has come to a stalemate, so nothing is moving there. And at present, we have very few independent court judges who work there and who can really proceed on a court proceeding not driven by political interest. And these court proceedings can really lead to a newspaper becoming bankrupt because there will be some unproportional fees assigned by the court. And we were dealing with a fee of $500,000 and €1 million. But fortunately, we have won those court proceedings.
И последние два способа, они экзотические. Они мало будут понятны здесь, в Маастрихе, но я про них скажу.
And two other pressure middles, which are slightly exotic and probably they will be less easily understood here in Maastricht, but I will mention them.
Однажды огромная транснациональная корпорация, зная, что у нас прекрасная аудитория, очень захотела разместить свою рекламу. Я не буду называть имя этой корпорации, но, знаете, на Новый год обычно их красные грузовики, все в огоньках, ездят под новогоднюю музыку на всех экранах мира.
So once a multinational company, well-known company, wanted to place their ads in our newspaper. I will not say the name of this company, but you might think of the red trucks and some Santa Claus style and New Year music every year. So this kind of company.
И они перечислили деньги, но им последовала угроза со стороны власти, чтобы они даже не думали поддерживать рекламой независимые СМИ. И они сделали беспрецедентный шаг. Они попросили, чтобы эти деньги стали благотворительным взносом, но попросили рекламу не печатать.
So the situation was such that this company has already paid for the advertisement, so they made the bank overdraft. And then they were called by some state associated people, and they were asked not to support our newspaper with any advertisements. And then this company has done quite an exceptional move. They said that this money which we have received from them should be considered to be charity. However, they asked us not to place any ads on their behalf.
Давление на рекламодателей по политическим мотивам регулярно, постоянно.
So, and this situation is just continuous, that organizations are put under pressure not to place their advertisement in our newspaper.
А сейчас второе, то, что я хотел сказать, идет беспрецедентное давление на нашего акционера, банкира Лебедева, с тем, чтобы остановить деятельность его банка, поскольку власти очень не нравится, что он принимает активное участие в издании «Новой газеты».
And another way of pressure is what is facing one of our main shareholders, Mr. Lebedev, who is facing unprecedented pressure from the state, which is now trying to control his bank and checking his bank, because the state is not pleased with the fact that Mr. Lebedev is involved in our newspaper.
A question in between. Any comments or questions from the audience? Mayalawa, please.
Hello, I'm a journalist from Italy, and I am most impressed by the story of your newspaper, which I have known for many years. I have a question for you, since you mentioned the fact that your investigation consists in following the money, and the money goes out, often out of the country, of Russia. What sort of collaboration would you like to have, or you already have, from journalists from other countries?
Спасибо. Да, мы можем обратиться, кстати говоря, и к вашим коллегам. Мы сотрудничаем с карьерой де ла Сера. Мы можем обратиться в Нью-Йорк Таймс. Мы можем обратиться в Штерн и Шпигель в Германии. Мы можем обратиться к датским журналистам, румынским журналистам, для того, чтобы они проверили по нашей просьбе и нашли какую-то информацию. Во-вторых, у нас есть, я вот думаю, говорить, не говорить, у нас есть некая база, связанная с офшорами, что очень помогает в нашей шпионской работе. У нас что-то еще есть, но я не могу произнести этого вслух.
Thank you very much for your question. I do confirm that we do have support from journalists from other countries. We work closely with your colleagues from Italy, with colleagues from Corriere della Sera, with New York Times, Stern and Spiegel, with Danish, with Romanian journalists and others. And they help us to get the information that we need. Secondly, we have also a certain, connection to offshores, a certain database, which also helps us to determine the movements. And thirdly, there is some other assets that we have that really helps us in our spy work. However, I cannot say it here loudly.
Вообще, я хочу сказать, пока не будет создан единый при Европейском парламенте или Европейском совете орган по противодействию коррупции, пока он не добьется того, чтобы были сокращены до минимума офшоры, до тех пор мы будем иметь дело с коррупцией. А коррупция — это разновидность апартеида, она лишает народа будущего.
And actually, I would like to say that as long as we do not have any unified anti-corruption body which operates at the supranational level, as long as we have offshores, many offshores, we will have corruption. And corruption, this is some form of apartheid, something which takes away the future of the peoples.
В общем, нам нужен, коллеги, информационный Интерпол.
Dear colleagues, we need to establish some kind of informational Interpol.
The gentleman over there, please.
My name is George Vogler. I'm a journalist from Maastricht. If I understand Mr. Muratov well, he said in his speech that he doesn't want to be the censor of his editorial staff. I appreciate that point of view as an editor-in-chief, but I can hardly imagine that he doesn't want to read the articles in case of investigating journalism or in a tricky business that will be published, that he doesn't want to read it in advance.
Я люблю читать.
I like reading.
Конечно, то, что касается важнейших политических материалов и расследований, я не просто читаю их, я принимаю участие как редактор, выбранный коллективом редактор. Я принимаю участие в определении этих основных тем вместе со своим первым заместителем. Поэтому, конечно, мы в курсе того, что происходит. Но мы действительно стараемся читать газету, за исключением тех материалов, которые завтра будут бомбой. Мы действительно стараемся читать, я стараюсь читать газету на следующий день после того, как она вышла. То есть я стараюсь быть у газеты не только редактором, но и читателем.
Yes, I should say that, of course, when we are talking about the very sensitive political cases or investigations, I'm not only the editor, I'm also the person who is actively involved into the preliminary work, and I'm this selected by people, elected by people editor. So me, myself, and my first deputy, we are thoroughly informed about materials that will be published in the newspaper. But with exceptions of these cases that you referred to, which tomorrow might become an information bombs, I really try to read the newspaper the day after it has been published, so that I'm not only the editor, but the main reader of my newspaper.
Понимаете, закончилась история иерархичных СМИ, СМИ, над которыми давлеет главный редактор. Ну вот у нас круглосуточно обновляются материалы на интернет-портале Газеты. Но не могу же я задерживать онлайн на несколько минут, пока успею это прочитать. Поэтому нужно огромное доверие к своим журналистам. Что такое современная цензура? Раз уж вот прямо на этот вопрос отвечать. Современная цензура – это подбор отличных людей и высокие стандарты, которым они должны следовать в работе. Вот при условии двух этих вещей можно быть читателем.
You know, I think that the time of press, of media, which was organized as per hierarchy, is over. That time is really over. And just remember, we have our web service, and it has been, it's being updated every minute, every hour. And I cannot every time ask for them for a couple of minutes of delay just because I need to read it before it is published. And this means that I really need to trust my people, trust them at all circumstances. And I think that modern censorship, it just requires two conditions. First of all, you need to find excellent people for your team, excellent people. And secondly, those people need to follow the very high standards. And if those two requirements are met, then you can be the reader of your newspaper.
Yes, please.
Hello, I'm a journalist and freelancer from Poland. And I have a question about the credibility of sources. You have said that you never disclose the identity of your sources, which is obviously understandable. But a story from my own publishing is that recently I published an investigative story about one of the Polish state-owned companies, which was based on anonymous sources. And as a follow-up, the company did a lot of efforts to discredit our sources, saying that they're anonymous, they are not credible, and we, for obvious reasons, couldn't disclose the identity. And so how do you solve the problem? Do readers believe that your sources, which are never disclosed, are credible, are actual people, that you don't make it up in a way?
Ну, хорошо, я вам скажу, что мы делаем в таком случае.
Well, in this case, we do the following.
Мы не открываем источник, мы предполагаем реакцию противоположной стороны, и у нас всегда под задницей есть еще что-то, что не опубликовано в этом номере газеты.
Well, you know, we never disclose the name of our source, but we can in advance, we can think of what will be the reaction of our opponents, and we always have some other assets which we do not disclose immediately. We have some additional information to disclose.
В два хода. Все делается в два хода. Сначала один текст, реакция той стороны, мы говорим, как так? А вот у нас еще здесь случайно оказалось что-то. и печатаем вторую часть.
So this chess game we play in
Всё.
two moves. The first move, we disclose a part of some information. Then the opponent replies to that information. And then there is something else we can find in it. And then we say, wow, we have forgotten, but we have even some other piece of information which we have not mentioned initially.
Anybody else at the moment? Sueli, please.
In the presentation, Wilfried Rutten mentioned about business model. I would like to know what is your business model?
Я не знаю, что вам ответить. Я могу сказать, что у нас есть несколько принципов. Мы издаем, кроме газеты в Москве, мы издаем еще 16 изданий. Новая газета в Сибири, новая газета на Тихом океане, новая газета в Казахстане, в общем, в разных регионах там, страны мира. Новая газета есть в Германии, в Кёльне. Они на самофинансировании. Они сами себя окупают. Мы не отвечаем за их финансовую деятельность. Поощрение сотрудников, как и обычно, наверное, как у всех, состоит из 3 частей. Основной оклад, служебная надбавка и премиальная часть. Премиальная часть зависит от количества прочтений этого материала в газете и на сайте. То есть резонанс аудитории увязывается с премиальной частью зарплаты журналистов. Но я скажу вам против правил, значит, к сожалению, в России делать независимую газету, самостоятельную газету, это не бизнес. Это не бизнес. Это скорее гражданское поведение.
I don't know how to answer your question, but I can say about some key principal factors of our work. We have our newspaper in Moscow, and next to it we have other 16 newspapers in Sibir, in the Pacific Ocean region, in Cologne. Those newspapers, they are self-funded, so they do not depend on any financing from our part. And concerning incentives for our journalists, I think it's just the usual practice that we have the incentives which consist of 3 parts. First of all, it's the main salary. Secondly, there is some duty surcharge. And thirdly, it is the bonus. And the amount of the bonus depends on the replies from our readers. When we notice that this information has been read a lot in the newspaper or on the website, then we consider to give a bonus to the journalist. But you know, I would say that against all the rules in Russia, running an independent newspaper, it's not a profitable business. It's rather a civil attitude.
Бизнес – это когда газета пишет о том, что у людей находится ниже пояса, а мы вечно занимаемся тем, что пишем о том, что находится выше пояса.
So business, that would be something what the yellow press writes about some naughty parts of the human behavior. And what we are writing about, it's higher principles, moral principles, and this is much less profitable as a business.
I think we had a question there. Yes, please.
I have a small question. I can imagine that the Secret Service of Russia is very interested in what you are doing as an editorial staff. Have you been infiltrated the last 20 years?
Excuse me, and has been. What was the last sentence?
Is there a mole? Has there been a mole inside your company? Or do I read too much? Detectives. Sure.
Но нам периодически пересказывают наши разговоры, что мы там планируем, но мы спокойно к этому относимся. Прослушивают, следят, смотрят. Ну что же, мы на это смотрим как на расширение аудитории.
Well, sometimes they do cite our conversations back to us. They tell us exactly what our plans are, what we have discussed, and so on. But you know, we do not bother so much about that. We just see that, well, some additional readers of our newspapers we have acquired, and that's it.
If I may, just another more technical question. To do investigation, you need a lot of data, and you start from statistics data, and we know how unreliable the statistics in Russia are. So how do you construct your own data? Are your journalists sort of create their own data?
Не говоря все о методике, чтобы не облегчить жизнь гражданам из предыдущего вопроса,
I don't want to go too much into detail because I don't want to make the life of people mentioned in the previous question too easy.
Я могу сказать, что это пакет баз данных, в который входят официальные базы данных, ну, где зарегистрированы предприятия. Рядом декларации о доходах, которые должны делать госчиновники. Рядом база данных дорожной полиции. Ты уже можешь сравнивать. Есть декларации чиновника, та машина, которая у него на самом деле есть в базе данных дорожной полиции. А кроме того, например, различные базы данных, которые находились, допустим, в записных книжках арестованных преступников. И мы можем посмотреть, нет ли телефона интересующего нас человека в записной книжке или в сим-карте одного из арестованных лидеров криминального мира. И вот приблизительно так потихоньку восстанавливается образ человека. У нас этим занимаются 4 очень профессиональных человека. Могу назвать их фамилии, могу не называть. Но вот фамилию Соколов и Анин скажу, запомните, это выдающиеся ребята-исследователи.
So we have several databases, and we have a database with a package of data which are official and a database which is unofficial. So we have, for example, the official database, the place, location of registration of a certain company. We have a tax declaration. We have the database of the road police. And there we can already try to verify whether the car which is registered with the road police is the car which the civil servant has indicated in his tax declaration. That is one example. Besides that, we have really various databases which we have construed based on the notes from arrested criminals. So we can think and say, what if this godfather which has been arrested in his notebook has the phone number, or maybe on his SIM card has the phone number of the civil servant we are interested in. And this is like this, so stone by stone we are constructing the whole image of this personality. And we have 4 very professional team members working on this kind of investigations. And I can say all the names of all of them, but I would like to mention only 2 of them. This is Mr. Sokolov and Mr. Anin. Just remember those names. They are really outstanding investigators.
А иногда есть удача. Она нам сопутствует. Один из наших информаторов случайно оказался свидетелем аварии. Мы начали проверять номера микроавтобуса, который оказался в аварии и смял маленькую машину. Там 2 погибших человека. И выяснилось, что эта авария нигде не зарегистрирована. Нигде. Она не прошла ни в каких сводках криминальных. Начали проверять, что это за номер. Выяснилось, что номер подложный. А потом искали и нашли, что на этой машине ехала жена министра внутренних дел России по своим делам. И именно поэтому аварию замяли, а автобус спрятали. А потом мы уже нашли автобус и сфотографировали его в специальном гараже. Вот бывает и так. Это совсем недавняя история.
And you know, sometimes you just have the lady blind luck, which helps us a lot. And we are quite fortunate in this perspective. And for example, recently, one of our sources was witnessing a car accident. And there was a small minibus crashing into a small car, and 2 people died in the small car. And then later we were checking the car plates, and we noticed that the road police has not at all registered this accident. And this we found very strange, what happened. And later we discovered that on this minibus, with this false car plate, there was the wife of the Minister of Interior driving. And that is why this accident was not registered anywhere. Later we found this minibus in a special garage. We made the picture of this vehicle. But you see, this is how it can happen. And this is just a very recent story.
You have given us a remarkable perspective of Russia, and I wonder how the story will continue, because we hear many more stories about Russia. And do you feel that time is on your side, that this is the way of the future? Are you positive and optimistic about the way things are going? Or do you face opposition that is only getting more subtle and more sophisticated, but not weaker?
Я эгоист. Мне не нравится, когда из нашей страны уезжают люди в вашу страну или в соседние страны. Потому что я понимаю, таким образом уезжают наши читатели. Я считаю, что сейчас пришло время жить в России. Родилось молодое, современное, умное, талантливое общество, которым я очень горжусь. Мне кажется, что у нас в стране появляется, наконец-то, очень ответственный народ. Мне этот народ нравится, я его обслужу.
Well, you know, I'm a very egoistic person, and I don't like when people leave Russia and start living in your country or in other countries outside of Russia. Because I think that it is now time to live in Russia. Because now we have this new generation, young, new, talented, modern society, the society that I'm really proud of. And I think that finally we have now responsible people that I want to serve.
Anybody else? Really?
I just have one question about recruiting, how you find your journalists. What is the skills you look for? What is the people you look for? Where do they come from? Since there's so much state media, as you mentioned, how do you find guys working on your editorial staff?
Ну, правила нет. Когда приходят звезды, они сами делают свой выбор, что они хотят работать в независимой газете. Так было в «Новой газете». Есть еще независимая газета, в «Новой газете». А когда приходят молодые, то это конкурс среди стажеров и практикантов. То есть приходит множество стажеров. Из них 1, 2, иногда 3 человека мы забираем себе. 3 месяца они работают на испытательном сроке, затем мы берем их в штат. Вот за последнее время взяли 3 месяца взяли 3, еще 3. Да, бывает, переходят из государственных СМИ. А давайте сначала про первое.
So there are no any standard procedures. Of course, when we are talking about really star, very professional journalists, those people make their own choice and they decide to work for Novaya Gazeta, which is an independent independent newspaper, and this is what they appreciate. And young people, normally they get to us through internships, and then there is this internal competition between them, and then 1, 2, or 3 people, they stay with us. So they are there on probation for 3 months, and after that we can sometimes employ them. So in the recent 3 months, we have employed 3 people. And of course, there are also people who come to us from the state-driven newspapers.
Да, бывает, что переходят из государственных СМИ. Например, есть в России крупнейшее агентство, называется ТАСС, ИТАР-ТАСС, знаменитое на весь мир крупнейшее государственное агентство. В ИТАР-ТАСС был выдающийся сотрудник, который работал в Европе, но ему предложили возглавить освещение деятельности Кремля, чтобы он целиком отвечал за новости из Кремля. Переведите, пожалуйста.
So, talking about the state-owned media, we used to have this, well, the huge news agency, ITAR-TASS, which is very well known in the whole world, and there was a certain journalist working for it in Europe, and he received an offer to start working on the topic of Kremlin, so just to broadcast, to write news on the Kremlin-related topics.
Он пришел к нам. Этот человек пришел к нам.
He came to us, this person.
Знакомьтесь.
So, and please let
Alexander
me introduce him. Alexander Minin is here.
Собственный корреспондент «Новой газеты» в Брюсселе.
So now Alexander is the own correspondent of Novaya Gazeta in Brussels.
I think we should come to a close soon to leave some room for individual interviews as planned. Anybody else with another question? Otherwise, I would like to touch upon one final aspect, since Deputy Mayor Costons mentioned the European Union. And Maastricht has a very rich history in EU affairs, and also the government of the Netherlands has been quite interested in fostering press freedom, particularly in the Western Balkans and in Central Asia. This leads me to 2 questions. One, what is your current perspective from the outside on the EU in its current predicament with the Euro crisis on the one hand and crisis of legitimacy of the EU as a whole? And secondly and finally, is there anything that the European Union or its member states can do to help you continue your work, either on the political level, macro-political level, so to speak, or in terms of very specific support actions?
Мы работаем с европейскими органами власти, мы работаем с ПАСЕ, с Парламентской ассамблеей Совета Европы, с ОБСЕ, с Европейским Советом. Мы регулярно участвуем в дискуссиях в Совете Европы, и это огромная неоценимая помощь. Последний раз очень серьезно Европейский Совет помог нашему корреспонденту в Беларуси Ирине Халип, которая оказалась женой кандидата в президенты Беларуси Андрея Санникова. И она и ее муж были выпущены из тюрьмы. Но мы точно знаем, если у нас будет какая-то потребность, мы всегда к вам обратимся. Ждите.
We do cooperate with European state authorities, with European governmental organizations and supranational organizations such as parliamentary Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the Council of Europe. There we are quite frequent guests when we can present some case. And recently we got support for Irina Khalib, who happened to be the wife of one of president candidates in Belarus, Mr. Salnikov, an opposition member. And due to this support, we have managed to get Irina and her husband out of the prison. So just please wait for us. When the need arises, we again will address you, we will ask for your support.
Многие наши чиновники хотят воровать деньги в России, а жить в Европе. Не пускайте их сюда, пускай они остаются с нами, мы сами с ними разберемся.
You know, many of our civil servants, they would like to steal money in Russia and later to come and live in Europe. So please, do not allow them to enter your countries. Just let them be there, stay in Russia, and we will do everything which is required there.
У меня есть любимое выражение, я не первый раз его процитирую. Они хотят править как Сталин, а жить как Абрамович. Вот не надо этого позволять.
You know, I very often say that those people, they want to rule as Stalin, but to live as Abramovich. And this we should prevent.
Спасибо.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Muratov. And I think that's now the opportunity for face-to-face talks and interviews, and then subsequent lunch. Thank you very much.
То есть я смогу посмотреть хотя бы ратушу?
So at least I will see the city hall of Maastricht.
Thank you very much.